To start, what you need to do is chock your front wheels so the vehicle can't roll, put it in neutral, and then raise and support your rear axle from the ground. And if your vehicle has air ride suspension, make sure you turn it off before you lift the vehicle. Let's get this hubcap out of here. There we go. Remove your wheel. Let's remove our caliper. Set this aside. Remove your rotor, and then do the same on the other side of the vehicle. One of the first things you need to do is remove your diff plug. Fluid may come out. Make sure you have a collection bucket. All right. Obviously nothing came out. The fluid's low, probably from the leak. We're going to be replacing this piece, but if you weren't, you would just take a crayon. You're going to mark right on your drive shaft and on this piece right there, so you remember where to put them back on when it comes time for installation. Make sure you put a recycling catch pan underneath your transmission tail shaft seal, because when you remove the drive shaft, fluid may come out. Remove these bolts. Hold your drive shaft. Rubber mallet. Remove your drive shaft. Make sure you check both of your U-joints. It's a good idea to count the amount of threads that come out of your pinion nut. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got approximately 4, and then it would end. So next we need to take an inch-pound torque wrench and take a measurement of how many inch-pounds it takes to spin this. And this is rotating torque. And that's important to remember the difference between rotating and regular torque, because right now what we want to do is just figure out how much torque it takes to make this rotate. Okay. So that's a little bit light. I'm going to go a little heavier. Right about there. So for me, I'm looking at probably about 28. Yours might be different, so don't go by that. But whatever you did, mine says 28. I'm going to write down 28. I'll add 5 to that, and I'm going to take a note. When I go to put this back together, it's going to be extremely important to remember what you wrote down. Remove your nut. Discard and replace. If when you remove your nut you happen to notice that it's orange behind here, that's probably because your vehicle is made before 2007. If you get a kit that comes with the purple nut, you need to replace this crush collar as well, which is going to be located right back here, and I'll show you where. And if you're not replacing the crush collar that's inside there, you need to make sure that you put on a brand new orange colored nut. So next we need to get this off of here, and there's a couple ways of doing that. If you're not worried about damaging this, you can go ahead and bonk it with a hammer a couple times. If for some reason that's not working, you can use a puller. Here we go. If you're going to be reusing this, make sure you clean it down. And go right along this outer area. That's right where the seal is going to ride. Make sure that you feel along in there, and also take a quick peek and make sure that there's no grooves. This one I can see a very apparent groove, and that's because the seal right up here has been wearing into it. As this spins over and over and over, the rubber seal, believe it or not, will actually cut into the metal, which sounds strange, and then of course it'll cause a leak. To remove the seal, so you can use something as basic as a seal removal tool. Otherwise, maybe you don't have one of these, little screwdriver, we're going to catch it right on the edge right here. Give it a couple bonks and try to drive this up and out of here. Keep in mind that fluid may come out and the seal might come flying out, so make sure you're protected with safety glasses. There it goes. Now that that seal's out of the way, you can look right here. You're going to see this thing. It's called a sling washer. And that just kind of slings gear oil all around in there. Behind there, we're going to use a magnet. And we're just going to take out this bearing. Be extra careful not to let it hit the ground. There it is. Perfect time to take a look at your bearing and make sure that it's not all scored up. This looks decent. Continuing on, this little piece right here is your crush washer. If you're using a different color nut than what was originally on it, you need to replace this with the new one. Let's get our new crush collar in there. Clean this area up. Once you have your bearing cleaned down, go ahead and put it back in there. Double check. Make sure you put this in. Super important. Let's get this seal on there. Before you do, make sure you put a little bit of lubricant inside around where that spring is, just so it doesn't pop off. They sell a special driver that'll put this seal in, but if you're handy and you just got extra metal around, just find something that'll go right over the edges. Improvise here. There's a little piece of wood, a little adapter. I'm gonna get this in there, at least get it started. Okay. We're just gonna drive in this seal until it's all the way up against the differential. Get this up on here. Okay. Just gonna try to bonk that straight in. That's good. We won't go any further than that. With this loose, you can see how much up and down play this has. By the time we have this tight, we should have 0 up and down play. Let's get our tool on here. That's gonna make it so we can hold onto this. Start tightening up our nut. Starting to get a little bit of resistance here. As long as you can still see this moving up and down, just like this, wiggling around, it's still entirely too loose. Okay. I have no visible movement here on the pinion. Can wiggle it around. That feels great. So now is where it comes time for us to start torquing this and making sure that we don't overdo it, because if you crush that too tight in there, that crush collar, it's going to put too much pressure on the bearings and you're going to wipe out your rear differential bearings. Okay. That feels pretty good. Let's start there. You want to always start loose, because if you go too tight, you're going to need to take this all back apart and replace the crush collar and of course the seal again, because it's going to be ruined. So less is more. Let's test the rotating torque. Okay, that's entirely too loose, which is kind of a good thing because you don't want it to be over tightened. If we happen to have over tightened at this point, you would crush that crush collar in there too much and we would have to replace that and of course the seal and take this all back apart. We need to start with what our original plan was, and we're gonna go 5 pounds higher than that for drag resistance here. So to tighten up this nut, we're just gonna go ahead and put in 2 of these bolts and use a nice pry bar to hold it. Still too loose. We want to watch for that click. Okay, so here's our 25. Feels like it's right there. Right as soon as it clicks, it's ready to turn. I'm just going to test it. I'm going to go up to our 30 inch-pounds. Okay, so it's still not ready yet because I didn't make my click. I'm going to go just a teeny bit more. Also, I'm going to give this a little feel. Up and down, there's 0 movement. If you still have movement at this point, your crush collar is probably not working the way that it's supposed to, and or maybe wrong. All right, so let's go back down to the 25 again. All right, so 25, we definitely got that 25. Let's see where we're at though. There's 27, still not there. A little more. I'd rather make a whole bunch of small movements, tightening, than go too tight and then have to take it all back apart and replace parts again. There it is, right there. That's perfect. Give it a feel. That feels so good. Awesome. Love it. Let's continue. Make sure your drive shaft bolts are clean and you use some red thread locker. Let's get this lined up. Snug them up. Torque these to manufacturer specifications. I'm just going to put my bar right across here so I can torque these bolts to 83 foot-pounds. It's a good idea to just double check all your bolts to make sure they're torqued. Now that that's in, it's important to remember to fill your differential. A lot of differentials need this right here. It's a friction modifier. If yours does, make sure you add it. Add your manufacturer specified gear oil. Make sure you put a drain bucket underneath your fill hole. If your fill plug looks like this, make sure you clean it up. I'm just going to clean up this area a little bit. Put in our newly cleaned plug. Snug it up. Now we're just going to clean down this area right here, and of course over at the transmission tail shaft area. Watch your eyes. Let's get our brakes back together. Torque these to manufacturer specifications, which is 18 foot-pounds. Do the same to the other side of the vehicle. Now let's get the wheels on here and then torque them down to manufacturer specifications. Just make it so your wheels just barely touch the ground. Torque your lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Torqued. Our hubcap on here. Now let's just take it for a road test and then recheck for leaks.